Hello everyone, let's begin. Harmonization with this session 100%, going both ways. Wonderful. So let's take a moment, take a deeper look into the pattern of energy that's presenting itself to us today. So I'm perceiving a cone shape. Maybe more like a light shining out of a source would be a better thought. There's the top of the cone. Up here, the textural sensation that I'm perceiving is like a top of a cone that encompasses my head and all of my spine, and it seems to end about the same distance below my tailbone as it is above my head, into a point that's shining upwards. It's a light yellow color, and it's kind of humming, giving off a very specific tone. Oh, that sort of a pitch and vibration, and there's sort of this caving in sensation here. If I were to press my palm up against my forehead here, it's almost like at this angle exactly, there's something dipping in that's green, and it's attempting to gradiate between the green and the yellow, like a shade changing between the colors, but it can't. It's just a block line here, constantly changing slightly, trying to create that gradient, but it's stuck. And that tilting sensation, kind of nauseating, aligns with a specific emotional feeling, right? Psycho-emotional energetics I would look into in deep with Dr. Richard Bartlett if you're interested in this, but the tilting sensation does indicate an emotional involvement. The word that's coming up is neutrality. Gotcha. So, unable to move into, or just barely able to touch, but not move beyond the emotion of neutrality somewhere in our lives, getting stuck against something in this way. Interesting. In two lines of work are coming up at the same time right now that I've studied that can both align with this. Dr. David Hawkins created his scale of consciousness with different numbers representative of different vibrational harmonics that have to do with emotional states. I believe courage and neutrality are right next to each other, and moving beyond those goes into things like willingness and love and more things like that. But it seems like we have an area in our energy that's stuck on the scale here. It's not wanting to, or it's not able to move up the color gradient, to move up the number gradient, to move up the emotional vibrational gradient. It's getting stuck somewhere either just before or just into neutrality beyond courage. This also reminds me of the work by Dr. Randall Robirds, Creative Emotional Wizardry. He speaks about this. This is something that I experienced first, then researched Dr. David Hawkins, and now recently have run into Creative Emotional Wizardry. So it's good to know there are multiple different ways to arrive at the same source of information. The first time I was exposed to this sort of work, which is like, in my experience at the time, meditating for long periods of time, not trying to do anything, was that I would sit there for long periods of time, and eventually an emotional state would come up, and to me it would feel like it was peaking and then ending, but it was sort of like it was also growing, like there was a blocked ball of dry ice around my body that all of a sudden started sublimating. It started turning into gas until it filled up all of my energy, and I would become that energy, and then it could start to move and flow. And then it would end. Then I wouldn't experience that emotion anymore. And sometimes different things in my world around me or different pains in my body would also change after that happened. Not saying that that'll happen for you, saying that happened for me. Randall Robirds talks about the idea of matching the vibrational energy of an emotion being a method through which you can release that energy. And having had experience of that in the past, it certainly makes sense to me. Creative emotional wizardry, again, is that technique. Highly recommend it. Highly recommend looking into it. Wonderful. I don't know what these hand signs mean, by the way. They're just happening. That's In Deep with Dr. Richard Bartlett if you'd like to learn more about that. More intuitive-based energy work. It's almost like tuning an antenna. Or maybe a satellite dish. Until the texture feels just right. Good. Now things are very still, but they're still not moving. So there's something else that we need to see here. So let's go techniques. Cool. Awesome. So we're working with a little bit of Garcia Ennergetics here now. So us towards the energy of this thing that we're encountering and running into. No issue there. No issue with us towards the energy. How about the energy towards us? No issue there either. Okay. So now we're running into something that is not a part of Garcia Ennergetics. This is something that I have noticed shows up when these categories align. Okay, so priority hologram. What does that mean? Holograms, I find, are something that can result in a lot of outcomes. They can result in a lot of findings in energy work. Holograms are almost like environments that you can find yourself in. Imagine that you were a dust cloud and it is shaped. You are shaped exactly the way that you are. You are exactly the size and shape of the dust cloud that you are. And there's another dust cloud that exists that is arranged completely differently from you. And it is potentially the size, shape, and appearance of your environment around you. Now imagine that those two things were overlapped, and you were in the center of the environment. And because you were both dust clouds, the environment was also running through you, and you were running through it. As a result of that, many different things may present. And they may be transgenerational. They may be transincarnational when doing energy work as well. But in this case, it seems to be connected to this blocked point moving up the vibrational scale. Is there anything more that we need to know? Wonderful. If I knew how to harmonize and invert the energy of this hologram, integrate and process this emotional blockage, what would I do? Wiping a mirror clean. And I'm seeing green sort of bleeding into yellow, almost like there's a filter between the two, like if there were two pools of dye or dyed water that were blocked with a paper towel, and you would see them kind of slowly filter and seep into each other. It's a sensation like holograms in sensation, when they're environmental holograms, not body holograms, but environmental holograms, feel like what I assume it feels like to be a lizard trapped under a cup. And when they lift, it feels the same, as though I've been stuck in a vacuum environmentally, not exposed to my true energetic environment outside of myself, and all of a sudden that's been lifted up off of my body. Because the difference between these environmental holograms and the actual environment that you're in is that these have boundaries to them texturally. You can find the end of them, and when you see it in the entirety of its shape and you know what it's about, then you can release it. Wonderful. Is there anything more that we need to know today? So these motions, this hologram, both of these were released at this time. Wonderful. So we should have more access to the full gradient of the scale of consciousness now at this time as well. Wonderful. And the session is complete for today. Perfect. Alrighty. Well, it was good to see you. I hope that was beneficial for you, and I will see you next time.